There
big
is
characters.
one other topic I really wanted to make sure that we hit because I thought it was pretty cool. And it also involves someone who doesn't have like an entirely uncheckered past in
Mm.
terms of allegations and people wanting her to be in the wrestling business. But Ronda Rousey
Oh,
is now an independent wrestler. She showed up unannounced at a Lucha Vavoom show. If you're not familiar with Lucha Vavoom, it takes all your favorite aspects of Lucha Libre wrestling and combines it with burlesque entertainment. So yeah, it's true.
well,
No, they've been
bravo.
running. They've been running for a few years there. Like Taya Valkyrie is one of their biggest stars. So it's all like no, it's whatever. They're very
So
popular. They do well in Los
there's
Angeles.
a lot of crossover in those two industries.
Yeah,
Tassels, for example,
yeah. Well, I
kind of
mean,
the only places you can get tassels anymore: wrestling and Taya
but
Valkyrie.
but I was flipping through their Twitter page or their X page or whatever when writing about this thing for Ronda Rousey, and I went through like some of the bios they have up for their performers. I was like, yeah, like if you played a game of is this a wrestler or a burlesque performer, like a lot of people would be
Yeah,
very stumped. So
you'd be pleasantly surprised at the outcome.
so they do this thing. Ronda Rousey is sitting front row, and of course, her longtime training partner is Marina Shafir, who was at one time an
Yeah.
MMA fighter. And so Marina Shafir is on this show, and Ronda Rousey gets into an impromptu match where Rousey and Shafir end up wrestling Taya Valkyrie and Brian Kendrick. So,
Makes sense.
yep.
Yeah.
And anyway, like so they did this thing, and now they're going to go to Sammy Callahan's promotion. They're going to wrestle a match there, and all of the proceeds from it are being donated to charities working on the Hawaii wildfires, where Rousey's husband Travis Brown is from Hawaii. So it's an important thing for them. But I kind of thought this was cool because Ronda Rousey could do a lot of things to raise money for that charity. She could auction off like ring worn gear, things like
Yeah.
that. But I think her main motivation, like the charity work too, but also I think she likes wrestling and wants to go play wrestler with her friends. And I
Yeah.
think that's awesome. Like I think it shows she has a real respect for pro wrestling that she wants to do it for fun.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think that she always had like that pure love kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you can't be as close to a guy like Roddy Piper and not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there was always a certain authenticity to Ronda that they never really leaned into. They
Yeah.
tried to, once again, it's very WWE to look at, the greatest female combat sport athlete, if not combat sport athlete, period, full stop of all time,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, yeah, we could make something of her. Like,
Yeah.
let's see how we can package her and work on her character. Like, she doesn't need to have a character. She
Yeah.
shows up, is badass, and leaves. That's
But
it. You
she's
know?
already proven herself a star in another field, right?
Yeah.
Like Ronda Rousey was so popular that she's the genesis of women's MMA being on par with men's MMA. That's
Mm-hmm.
never happened in any other sport. They tried it with boxing with Layla Ali.
Mm-hmm.
They try it with the WNBA, and the attendance is not as good for the NBA. Ronda Rousey goes into her sport and
Yep.
she's like the biggest star, right? And so Ronda Rousey coming into WWE with her spotlight
Mm-hmm.
shine, she was able to use her spotlight to shine on the rest of the division, and all of a sudden Becky Lynch is a gigantic star. And so she's made significant contributions to both MMA and pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes feel like she doesn't get enough respect for that. And I think
Yeah.
maybe part of that is like, well, they're like, well, it's not like, it's not like something she did on purpose. She just got popular.
Like,
I
no,
don't know.
no. Like,
Yeah.
these are the same people who are like, I don't know, Star Wars has girls in it now. Do I really want to watch that? Like, it's that kind of thing. And honestly, she was under, coming from where she came from, was UFC. I mean, she was
Uh-huh.
definitely under a lot of pressure to wow a wrestling audience.
Yeah.
And if a wrestling audience has a bad taste for you before you even kind of hit the ring,
Mhm.
they're going to watch your match like this,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're looking for you to be impressed. And we don't give Ronda Rousey enough credit for being as good at pro wrestling
Mhm.
as she is in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like slingshotted titles and things like that, whatever. She was putting on entertaining matches
Mhm.
from the very beginning,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
they just by letting her be herself. It was when they tried to kind of like, there was always this weird like distrust between her and the fans, and it went both ways. But like, I never understood it.
I felt she always wanted to be a heel. Like she always felt that this like disdain from the fans a little bit. And there's always been a segment of the population, whether it's MMA or wrestling, that hates Ronda Rousey. And they hate
Yeah,
her for all different reasons, right? Like, a lot of people hate her because she said some controversial things, about Sandy Hook and
mm.
transgendered athletes. So she gets a lot of hate for that. And that like, if you say things that hurt people, people get mad
It's
at you.
not
So
great.
that's a thing that exists. That's fine. But the hate that she gets for like her wrestling, I think is
Yeah.
entirely undeserved. Because she does have a very healthy respect for wrestling. And when you listen to her talk about wrestling, and she talks about Roddy Piper, and she talks about wanting to be a Roddy Piper type heel where like
Mhm.
everybody just hates you and it ends up making the other person more popular. When you hear her talk about that, it's easy to go, okay, this woman really loves wrestling, and she's
Yeah.
incredibly loyal to her friends. Like Shayna Baszler,
Mhm.
helped her get into pro wrestling. And from what I hear, she basically said, look, I'm not doing anything unless I'm losing to Shayna on my way out. Like, we're going
Mhm.
to tag, then we're going to feud, and then I'm gone. And she pretty much kind of laid down the law with WWE that this is happening.
Like,
And now she
okay.
goes in, they're like, all right, okay. Then she goes
Usually we
into
don't book the ending of it before this, but all right.
this is highly unusual. I'm not even involved in the writing process. Um, and then she goes to the independents and she just wants to work with Marina Shafir and
Mhm.
donate things to charity. So, and one thing that I thought was interesting is Ronda Rousey appears to be doing now what we've talked about CM Punk possibly doing. Like,
Yeah.
just go have fun with wrestling. You've
Yeah.
burned your bridges with the big paychecks, but if you still love wrestling, just go wrestle and
Yeah.
make less money doing it.